What's going on, guys? It's Takeaway here for Team Cardfighters United today with a brand new deck profile for the post-BT-12 Rorowa deck. Once again, one of my favorite decks in all of D-Series Vanguard. I made sure to wait until after DBT-12 came out so that we could actually put in a super important card that came out that just makes this deck so much better. It is a night and day difference. We're just going to go ahead and get straight into the deck profile and move on with the ride line real quick. Just go ahead, then nothing has really changed in the ride line. You all obviously are still just running the full row one. The D starter skill, always the same. When right up on, if you win second, draw a card. You do have to run the grade 0 Rorowa, so the grade 1 Rorowa skill activate. When you ride it on the grade 0 one, you make a plant, pop it to the back row center, which is very nice for making some bodies early without actually committing any from hand. The grade 2 is going to continue that. Whenever you ride it on the grade 1, you can kill any rear guard, most likely the plant that you just put in the back row last turn, to call 2 plants. You're going to place them most likely in a column next to him, which is really good. You basically have like a free unit that should be able to hit their Vanguard, which is nice, especially because unlike most decks, Rorowa actually really starts going on grade 2 as long as you don't brick, which is really nice. So you're going to make those 2 plants and have them there, most likely use them for some skills on grade 2 we'll talk about in a moment. And then grade 3, you only actually run one of this Rorowa now. He's been replaced by a new Rorowa we got in BT-11. He has 2 very simple skills. Act, once per turn, Soul Blast, make 3 plants. Short, sweet, does exactly what you need to do. Then he has an auto skill of whenever he is attacked, you can retire any number of tokens that you want to and give plus 5k power to him. So basically, it's like they're intercepting, which is really good because it technically isn't countered by any like guard restricts or anything. Like if they swung for something that would just be a 5k guard, but it's got 2 or more, you can still use these and not actually have to waste a bunch of cards. So it is pretty nice. There's also some niche scenarios where it works out really well for you. It's really funny in the Clarissa matchup or the Vermilion because you get to pop them before they would hit, which matters more in Clarissa than it does Vermilion. Either way, very simple. Rorowa himself honestly doesn't do much. He's mostly just there to be a glitter with Rorowa so that your other cards can actually do what they need to do. And now, before we actually get into the main grade 3, we have to talk about the grade 2, which might as well be the actual Vanguard of the deck, which is Redalina. Redalina is so good. She is just normal grade 2 with an act skill of if you do not have Momoke, you can counterblast 1 and make 1. So basically, these are one big card that go together. Her secondary skill is a glitter with Rorowa, so you can only use it if Rorowa is your Vanguard. And when it attacks, you can Soul Blast 1 to gain the power of a token unit in the same column. It doesn't specify Momoke, so if there's a plant back there and you have like a Redalina swinging, so if like your other column has Redalina in it or something, you'll get to use it to actually get more power in your swings. It does cost Soul. Soul is pretty precious in this deck. There's a couple ways you can get Soul back, so it's not too big of a deal. But Momoke, which is so important in this deck, he's such a cool token, is an act skill. Once per turn, retire any number of rear guards to give himself 5k power for each thing you retired. And then if you're a glitter with Rorowa, if Redalina is in the same column as him, he gets to attack from the back row, which is super nice and honestly a lot of fun. So once you're on grade 2, you ride into the grade 2, you make that column of 2 tokens, you call Redalina, make a Momoke, kill those 2 tokens, Momoke gets plus 10. You use literally like Mushroom, which we'll get to later, to make a second column, and you swing 10, 10, 15, 25 with no triggers. It is really nice in early game, and there's a couple other cards that push that early game even farther that we will talk about, but it is so much fun just making this tiny little dragon really, really big for no reason, and then going bonk. It's a very nice time. Everyone loves it, except maybe your opponent when they have to drop way too many cards on grade 2. Especially because a lot of times your hand is only going to be, especially if you went first, their hand's only going to have like maybe like 7 cards in it if they didn't commit to board, and you're swinging pretty hard. So they're probably going to either have to drop a decent amount of cards, which stuff like Willista and Gandiva does not really like to do super early, or they're going to have to just take that damage, which is good for you because the closer they are to like 4 or 5, once your turns actually start going on like grade 3 turn, the better it is for you. And speaking of that, the grade 3 Rorowa we actually got in BBT-11 was Viridescent Flash Rorowa. And this one fixed so many issues the deck has had from now, 'cause a lot of times you would get to your like Persona Ride turn and you're still not really doing much. Like Persona Ride is kind of helpful. It makes a couple of your swings a little bit bigger, but you're still not really doing a ton. Whereas this one just amps that gameplay up a huge amount. So whenever you place him on top of the other Roroa, you get to make 2 plants, give them a skill of when they're retired, draw a card. And draw in this deck is so important. So when they're retired, draw a card, and you Persona Ride. So you're basically going to end up plussing 3 off of riding this, which is really nice. The power boost from Persona Ride is obviously good. And then it has a secondary on-attack skill to actually bind the old Roroa from your soul to give himself 5k and a crit, and then a glitter unit 5k. So like Momoke, you're going to give Momoke an extra 5k, which in turn is going to give your Redolinas an extra 5k, which is super nice. And your Vanguard actually having crit pressure is so amazing, because if you have like, say, any plant token behind him, then he's going to be swinging for 33 that turn with a crit. So your opponent actually has to care about that Vanguard swing, instead of just, a lot of times they would either take it or not have to worry about it too much. Especially because like 2 to passing Rorowa is pretty common, because your opponent doesn't actually have to really worry about you giving the power to him to try to go for the 2 to pass, because any trigger you get is going to go to Momoke to power up your other swings. But this card is so nice. It helps the deck so much, and it really just actually gave them something to push for instead of just continuing the Raidolina gameplay. Which, speaking of Raidolina gameplay, let's do more of that. So the Grade 3 Raidolina, which I'm sure all of you already know very well, came out in DBT-08, I believe. But it has just an auto skill of starting your main phase. If you don't have a Momoke, you can make one. Doesn't have to be the same column or anything. You can just make a Momoke, which is very nice. And it also has a glitter ability at the end of the battle that your Raidolina attacked a Vanguard. If your opponent's Vanguard's Grade 3 or greater, you can retire a Raidolina and a Momoke to call this from hand, which is going to be the 5th attack of the turn, by the way. And it's going to gain the power of Momoke. So now all the power you're feeding into this tiny little dragon is going to apply to 3 of your swings, which is just such nice numbers. It's especially really good because if they don't know if you have it in your hand or not, it can really affect how they're going to play their turn. The amount of times that I've swung with Raidolina, they've like either taken it and gone to 5, or barely guarded it and then go to start their turn, and I have to tell them, wait, no, I'm not done. I still have an extra swing. Because it's not actually something that they know for sure if it's going to happen or not, because your hand is hidden information, obviously. So, such a good card. Every time they give Rorowa support, it is just such a good boost. That makes the deck just that much more aggro. Speaking of that, here's the promo that we got forever ago that is also just super nice. Basically, it's a set order in Storkea, which is super weird to begin with. But whenever you place it, you pay the cost of Counterblast 1 and retire Rearguard. You get to search your deck for any Raidolina and put it in your hand. So whether or not you need the Grade 2 because you don't have it yet, you want the Grade 3 because you don't have it yet, or you have both, want to grab the Grade 2 to secure it for next turn, anything, it is just basically 4 extra copies of whichever Raidolina you want it to be. And then the even better part about it is it has a second skill of continuous and order zone. All token units in the back row actually gain 5,000 power. And this will stack for each copy of this order you've played. So the more of this you've used, the stronger Momoke is just going to be naturally, on top of any plant tokens you summon are actually going to have like good boost power, which is really helpful and actually will make your numbers matter more on swings besides just that one column that has Momoke, Raidolina. And now on to Grade 2s. A card that I've just recently started playing because I'm really wary about using anything that actually costs soul. It's so hard to convince myself to actually use soul for anything other than Raidolina or like making plants with Rorowa. By the way, really quick, need to specify something with the new Grade 3 Rorowa while I'm actually thinking about it. He actually, when he binds this Rorowa to gain that power and everything, at the end of the turn, you go back into this one, which is so nice because now you're hyper offensive with the new Rorowa, and you get to go back into this one and be defensive again. And then if you don't end up having the new one to ride again, you still have the very simple skill of making plants. So like you're not going to just be a dead card next turn, which is really nice. It's also super helpful because the when retired draw card skill in those plant tokens is until the end of your opponent's turn. So they actually, like, if you retire them for the cost of, say, like, if you retire them for the cost of, like, getting power to try to guard with them, you're actually going to be drawing cards off of that too. So there's a bunch of, like, neat little combos that it does. So back to the soul card. 2 of the cycle for Stoicheia. Almost the entire reason that it's actually in is just for the cycle ability, which, if you don't know, is just when it's discarded during ride phase, you can soul blast one, put it at the bottom of deck, and draw a card. Main reason being is that if you do not have Radalina in the early game, your deck is so much worse. Like, even if you started going perfectly from grade 3 turn, you're honestly super far behind other decks. Your game plan needs to start at grade 2 so you can start rushing and actually, like, making a difference with what you're doing. So having the ability to try to filter your hand a little bit to more likely have that Radalina is honestly super needed. The other ability is not bad. And on plays during Persona Ride, CB1, pick 2 of your opponent's front rows, and they can't intercept and can't stand next turn. Is honestly super good because it will slow them down a bit. It actually gives you, like, some technical removal, because usually, like, they're probably going to call over it or something, which is, you might as well have retired it. While also keeping them from being able to intercept with them is really nice. That can really help on your kill turn, especially with how little shield there is in D. So these are pretty nice addition. I have enjoyed using them. I could see the argument for running more of these. I just personally prefer to. A card that I could see someone taking out is going to be this next one that I run into 1 of, which is Matthias. He came out in DBT-11 with the new Rorowa. He has an on-play skill. If you have a grade 3 greater Vanguard with Rorowa, you get to Soul Blast 1, retire 2 other rear guards, which is a pretty hefty cost, and pick something from drop and call it. It's basically just here to revive Radalina. It combos pretty well with the new Rorowa, because the 2 rear guards you're going to be popping are obviously those 2 plant tokens that you just made and gave the ability to draw when you retire. So you're playing this, killing them, drawing 2 cards, calling Radalina, which is honestly, like, you're doing a lot. So it is a helpful card every once in a while. It usually doesn't come up. What it's better for is that for free from it just sitting there at start of battle phase, if you have Rorowa and Radalina, it just makes a plant token, which, if you have any copies of Resolute Eyes out, is honestly just good. It's just making a decent sized booster to be behind it, especially in the late game when your hand is low. That's not a bad card in the slightest. Now on to grade 1s. The only grade 1 we actually run anymore is Burrow Mushrooms. Burrow Mushrooms, just one of the best cards in all of Stoicheia. It is so free. Shove it to soul, make 2 plants. So nice. Gives a soul for Radalina and Rorowa. It makes plant tokens for you to kill with Momoke. Usually your good turn, like I said earlier, is after you kill those 2 plants with Momoke, you just play this, bring those 2 plants back out, have that basically full board swinging 4 times on grade 2, while your opponent's either on grade 2 as well or even on grade 1, which is just awesome. You love swinging into their face for way too large. So let's go ahead and, obviously, PGs, you need them. I have considered taking them out, try to go hyper aggro, but I'm not feeling that yet. So we are still running 3 PGs with the Sanctitude, because if you have Sanctitude, you run Sanctitude. That's just a bit. And then the card from BT-12 that I was talking about, which is the last main deck card we run, we're running it at a 3 of. It is the freest card in existence. It's even freer than Mushroom. Blessing to the Flowering Buds. So basically, all it does is you play it for free. Every unit you have that is 5k original power or less gets 10k and an on-hit skill to bounce it. The on-hit skill to bounce it doesn't matter. It's a you may bounce, so you're not required. But basically, especially in the early game, on that grade 2 turn we just talked about, instead of having 10k swing, 10k Vanguard swing, Momoke swing for 15, Radalina swing for 25. You've now upped that to your Vanguard swinging for 10, Momoke swinging for 25 with no trigger. The other column of plants is 30, and the Radalina is now swinging for 35. If you hit any triggers, 2 of those numbers jump by 10. It is so nutty, like, just to see those giant numbers as soon as grade 2. Like I said earlier, your opponent's only going to have around 7 cards in hand if they're still on grade 1 while you're doing this, and that is just huge numbers for 0 reason. Swing 4 times, They can, if they want to, drop a 15k to no pass your Vanguard, but then all you're really going to do is, if you do end up flipping a trigger because they no passed you, it's just going to Momoke. So it's not like it mattered anyway. And then they lost 15k shield already when you're about to swing at them 3 more times for huge. So the card is so good. I'm highly considering finding a way to fit in a 4th copy. I just don't want to be too bricky with orders. But even in the late game also is where this card shines. Because if you end up in the situation of you've gone through your Redolinas, you don't have any more, all you're really doing is making a field of plant tokens and swinging and then using them for guard, it turns all those little 5k units that are only a 10k attack into things that are actually hitting. You're making those 10k columns into 30k columns, all for the price of 1 card in your hand, which is so nice, super helpful. This card is amazing. I can't believe it's just like a rare, but I'm very glad they printed it. It feels so nice to play in Rorowa. Now, that is everything for the main deck and like normal units, so we'll do the triggers real quick. The next part is a little debatable. I'm running the Stoicheia OT. You can definitely run the red OT if you'd like, because red OT in this deck with full combo is 4 swings of 100 million, because of you just give the 100 million to Momoke, give the ability to Momoke, he swings twice, Redolina swings, gains the 100 million, swings, use Redolina from hand, gain the 100 million, swing. So like that is pretty deadly. But even without that, you're already swinging 100 million 3 times, just with this normally. And the ability to A-heal, which can just help tremendously, especially if you're kind of on the losing end, and you flip this, it can really turn the game like just completely 180 around. B, you get a crit. So if your opponent is ever OT to passing you, and you flip this and give the 100 million of the crit to your Vanguard, it will make such a big difference, because then all of your giant swings from Momoke and Redolina and everything all of a sudden can be lethal if they're only sitting at 3, or you might have even just killed them just from flipping the 1 card while they're sitting at 4 damage. So it's super nice. Obviously, drawing more cards is nice in case you need to hit more pieces. I've even flipped this before, got the crit to push them to 5, and one of the 2 draws been the grade 3 Redolina that I didn't have. So like it really can do a lot for you. Red OT, though, is not a bad option in the slightest. I'm also not opposed to blue OT, just because it has the same thing of the crit, like I'm talking about with this one, but it can also grab you the grade 3 Redolina from drop and pop it to hand, in case you didn't have it yet. So all 3 of those OTs are perfectly fine. It is completely down to preference at that point. Obviously, we're running 4 heals. My personal opinion, you run the World Original, because it's really good. I also have one of the SP of the set 1, just because I have it, so I run it. And then my actual lineup is a little funky. We're running 3 vanilla crit, 4 of the soul crit. You actually do really need to run the soul one, in my opinion, just because if you run out of soul or only end up with like 1 card in soul, you need to be able to actually use Rorowa's ability to make plants, or use the other Rorowa's ability to bind the Rorowa in there to get the power and the crit, while also just being able to shove this to soul and soul blast for Redolina to get the power, because it is really important. You always need to be able to use those skills when you can. I'm then running 3 of the draw, the 10k draw, obviously it's just the better one, and then 1 copy of the front. I like the front because A, it has a little more shield, B, if they see that you have all of the triggers, it makes it a lot harder for them to know what your lineup is specifically. So I do really like that personally. If you don't like that, then taking out the front for an 8th crit is perfectly fine, or taking out the front for a 4th draw. Either one, perfectly fine, completely optional at that point. That is pretty much it for this deck profile, though. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have any questions or anything about Rorowa or anything else, just let me know. We're going to try to have another deck profile come out soon, as well as a match involving Rorowa. So hopefully we'll be able to get that for you guys. And let me know what you think. Remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.